All right, y'all, hopping into the highest levels of dimension and their terrifying consequences, right? It may mean hopping into the highest levels of consciousness, awareness, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Whatever that would entail, you know what I mean? Because I tap into mainly a lot of these reaction videos for my own education, right? For my own edification. And yeah, just advancing the details of my reality, so to speak, right? So yeah, apparently they, these higher self states of being, they have terrifying consequences. Let's see what that's about, right?
Forever. Cause this mind is straight chatter, but I can barely say something. I feel like shit don't matter, so beware the fun cutting. It's volumes of demise. I hear the sound buzzing, so when she said she wanna die, and he sees she ain't bluffing, so he held her to the skies, cried sour momentum. Passive with goodbyes, I'd rather you tell him. But now the truth is I've digressed.
1 2 1 2, are we on? 1 2, are we on? Right. Back to another part 1. The highest levels of dimension and its terrifying consequences. Boom! Aperture. A regular on the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see it.
Most people think of dimensions as directions. Left, right, forward and back, up and down, and maybe time as well if we're feeling generous. This framing is comfortable because it preserves the idea that reality is fundamentally stable, and that higher dimensions are simply extensions of what we already know. But that assumption is completely wrong.
What you mean?
In the next 30 minutes, you're going to question everything you thought you knew about the universe.
Guess we have
With each new dimension that we explore, it'll become clearer to you that the physical laws that bind us are not universal. They're local, conditional, dependent on the fact that we're trapped in the third dimension. But let's not get ahead of ourselves now.
Don't do it now.
To understand higher dimensions, we must first understand the most basic of them, the first and second dimensions. A one-dimensional world is a line. It has length, but nothing else. No width, no depth, no concept of around or beside. The only movement that exists is forward and backward.
So it's the line. So it's linear direction. Linearity. Is that even a word? Linearity.
To trap a one-dimensional object, you only need two lines, one in front and the other behind. That alone completely traps the object. But a two-dimensional object can simply step to the left or the right to escape this prison. In 2 dimensions, we roughly start to see the world as we know it taking shape. Length and width forms a plane. You get shapes like squares and circles. The concepts of beside and around, they start to make sense. But depth is still missing, and that absence carries consequences that are easy to overlook when you don't think too deeply about them. In a 2-dimensional world, nothing has an interior in the way that we understand it. Everything is defined by its outline. A body is not a volume, but it's a border. A creature sees only edges, never what lies within another being, no matter how close it gets. From inside that world, this feels normal. It's complete. It's sufficient. Up until something looks down on it. Now, a 3-dimensional observer, like us, viewing a 2-dimensional plane.
Then you know what my question would be is that if that's all there was, right? The 2 dimensions, for example. It's like what inspired something to think like, yo, what if something was looking down on us, right? What if something was like had an inner perception of itself? What if it had the idea that it had an inner space and an outward space? Because with the 2-dimension, you don't have that yet, right? You still have the forward, backward, left, right. That's it. Just a flat shape. But then what inspires something to, you know what I mean?
Instantly destroys this illusion of privacy. Every internal structure is visible at once. Hearts, organs, mechanisms, all exposed without any resistance. There's no need to cut into these objects to see inside the creature, because inside and outside are not protected categories anymore.
Protected categories.
They were simply artifacts of limited perspective. This is the first truly unsettling lesson of dimensions.
What's that?
The way that our world works, we think of using force to invade, but when you start thinking in the level of dimensions, you don't need any kind of force. You can simply bypass all of those defense mechanisms. Think of it like trying to use a wall to stop a ghost. It'll simply just go through the wall that resistance didn't exist in the first place. If a three-dimensional being turns the hat of a two-dimensional being over, there's now no way for that two-dimensional being to ever get that hat back in place. To make things more unsettling, a three-dimensional being could perform surgery on a two-dimensional creature without ever breaking its skin.
What do you mean?
The organs of the two-dimensional creature would simply disappear without any force or resistance.
What?
From the lower dimensional point of view, this would feel like magic or divine intervention or reality malfunctioning.
Yo, I feel like the online reality is actually its own dimension, right? Because obviously it has its own characters of like behavior and, you know, time and, you know, directionality, shit like this, right? How things exist there, how they live and die, like it's definitely. So what? It's the fourth dimension, right? I think.
The same logic then applies to imprisonment. So in two dimensions, drawing a square around a creature is a perfect prison. There's no up, no down. That boundary is absolute. But to a three-dimensional being, the prison isn't just broken, it's wholly irrelevant. One step over the line and everything is, well, non-existent. Nothing about the square has changed, by the way. The rules just stopped applying. And I want to be clear, this is not a metaphor.
What is it?
This is how dimensions work. Now, with that in mind, consider the uncomfortable implication. Our own sense of physical laws only feel absolute because we are trapped inside them. But before we go on, there's something about mental health that we don't talk about enough.
What's that?
Your physical looks quietly shape how you feel.
Why?
Even something as basic as shaving can mess with your confidence if your skin reacts badly. For years, I couldn't figure out why I kept getting irritation every time I shaved. I assumed it was something wrong with me. Maybe I wasn't using enough cream. Maybe my skin was just overly sensitive. So I tried cold water tricks, fancy balms, even changing my shaving routine, but nothing solved it. What I didn't realize is that most razors actually do create irritation by design. They flex, they wiggle, and they rely on pressure to get a close shave, which basically means you're scraping off the top layer of your skin whether you intend to or not. Once I learned that, everything finally made sense. So I started looking for razors that are built differently. After trying different kinds of razors, I stumbled upon Henson. Their whole design philosophy is to eliminate that blade wiggle. The razor is engineered so precisely that the blade barely sticks out, meaning that it cuts hair without grazing the skin. The first time I used the blade, it honestly felt incredible. After years of trying different techniques, it finally clicked for me. I was done shaving and there was no redness, no bumps, no irritation that made me look like I had lost a fight with my chin. I was already hooked on the Henson train. But what made me a true believer was that unlike most other manufacturers that only allow you to use their own proprietary, expensive blades, Henson uses standard DE blades, which means that you can use any standard DE blade. No subscriptions, no gimmicks.
Oh, real?
It's just a simple tool that does its job perfectly. So, if you've been dealing with irritation or ingrown hairs and you have tried everything, the problem might not be you. It might just be your razor blade. So, click the first link in the description to change your skin, your physical health, and your mental health by getting Henson shaving. Also, use the code ApertureThinking to get 100 blades for free. That's more than 2 years worth of shaving. And trust me on this one, you will thank yourself. Alright, now back to our story.
Lady. Go Blade.
We live in 3 dimensions.
Why?
Length, width, depth. From this, we get volume and mass. This is the first dimension where knots can exist. A string can loop around itself without passing through itself. Constraints feel real here because there's no higher spatial direction available to resolve them. This is why 3-dimensional problems feel permanent. A wall blocks you, a body confines you, a prison cell feels inescapable. Every solution that we imagine is still forced to obey the same geometry. And even in our futuristic fantasies, they reveal this limitation. What's the most futuristic mode of transport that you can think of? A lot of you, I'm going to guess, said flying cars, right? It's what comes to my mind first. That alone reveals the fundamental limitations of only thinking in 3 dimensions. Every futuristic form of transport we have is simply finding a way to bypass 2-dimensional congestion by exploiting the 3rd dimension. Subways go under, planes go over. All these different inventions do is bypass the 2-dimensional traffic. It doesn't free us from the limitations of time and space. So far, physics feels strict, but they're understandable. Everything has a physical limit that we cannot break, no matter how far ahead we think.
Seriously?
However, this feeling completely falls apart once you start going higher.
Higher dimensions. Yo, no. I actually wanted to elaborate on my point of why I consider, the online reality a dimension in itself, because it breaks the boundary of distance, right? You can tap in with other, consider the whole content creators dilemma. You know what I'm saying? You can have your favorite content creator be from Japan and you be all the way in Australia or whatever, and then be fed content, concepts, messages, narratives, ideas from this creator as if they were your neighbor, just popping out every few hours just to tell you their update on the world. You know what I'm saying? But then at the same time, you didn't even have to travel all the way across the world to get these messages and ideas from this creator. You know what I'm saying? The concept of time, when that creator allows you to get certain messages and ideas, aka their videos. Person can schedule their videos like I can drop, because okay, here's what I do, right? I do these lives right here, and these lives basically the purpose of these lives, well, on my end, right, is to gain these watch hours. But then at the same time, I feel like using the schedule function, you know what I mean, so that okay, I'm covering the watch time hours right here, and we can also use this moment to tap in with one another, since this moment is a live moment, right? But then I can schedule this live to just like come out as a video at a later stage. I unlist this live, and then I schedule I'm gonna schedule it as a video for a later stage, right? So you don't have to receive that message right now, right? Even though you got your post notifications on, of which subscribe and get those post notifications on, right? Please. But yeah, I can suspend, even though I drop the message right now, I can suspend the reception of you getting the message. You know what I'm saying? The concept of the boundary in the types of friends that you can make. You know what I'm saying? You can make friends from across the world, across nations, not just your own neighborhood, right? We've went beyond that boundary. We've went across the boundary of you as a creator. You may just be burnt out and want to take a little break from this content creation. What do? You can produce videos, like a batch of videos beforehand, right? And then just schedule those videos, those amount of videos across the span of time that you're gonna be away. You know, so that the real you, the physical flesh and blood you, can take its rest while your content still goes on. You know what I'm saying? So those kind of lines have been blurred, right? That's why I feel like, yeah, like this online verse can be its own dimension. That's why I'm kind of guessing maybe the fourth dimension. Saying
The fourth dimension arrives in two forms, and both
are we getting into that? Let's see what your idea of it is, bro.
are destabilizing. The first is time, and not time as the poetic passing of events that we conceptualize it to be, but as a coordinate. In this understanding, you don't simply exist somewhere, you also exist sometime.
Okay.
And in a way, we already experience this dimension. A location without a time is meaningless to us. Meet me at the library is incomplete without at noon.
So time is the fourth dimension.
Seen this way, you're not a body moving through time. You're a four-dimensional object stretched across it, a world line. Your birth, every action you've ever taken, and your death are not events that you approach. They're locations on a structure you already occupy.
Yeah.
You experience this structure one slice at a time, the way a two-dimensional being would experience.
And obviously, okay, cool. Okay, so according to Aperture, the fourth dimension is time, right? And yeah, okay, I see why you're saying that, because now that's where now we introduce the concept of death and birth and change, because that's what that is. That's what death is. It's change. It's what birth is. It's change. It's a change at a specific point in time. All right.
Experience a three-dimensional object.
Expiration dates and shit.
Passing through its plane. This alone quietly breaks our intuition about freedom. If time is a dimension, then your life isn't unfolding. It already exists as a shape from start to finish. You are predefined. But the more disturbing interpretation of the fourth dimension is spatial. A fourth spatial dimension does to us exactly what we do to two-dimensional worlds. A four-dimensional observer wouldn't see your surface. They would see everything. Organs, blood flow, digestion, tumors, neural activity. Your entire body exposed without any form of penetration. The same you can conduct surgery on a two-dimensional object without any injuries is the same way a four-dimensional object can on you. Now to you, this would feel like a violation without...
So time can perform something on you.
Cause a lawless intrusion. To them, it would feel as trivial as placing your finger in the middle of a circle. If a four-dimensional object entered our world, we would not perceive it as a whole object. We would only be able to observe its cross-sections, a point appearing from nothing and disappearing from nowhere, growing into a sphere, shrinking, vanishing, a ghost, not because it's transparent, but because it's incomplete.
Yep.
At this level, physics don't explode yet, but it does give us a glimpse. It shows us that everything that we think is protected on a fundamental level simply isn't. Now, the fourth dimension doesn't feel dangerous at first. It feels abstract. It almost feels philosophical. It's something you can gesture towards without letting it touch you. But abstraction is only a shield until the structure begins to assert itself. Once you follow the consequences instead of the metaphor, the fourth dimension becomes the point where physics stops acting like a barrier and starts behaving like a suggestion. In three dimensions, knots are permanent. They are a physical fact. A string can trap itself. A constraint forms because there is no available direction for escape, and this is why our headphones getting tangled feels so frustrating. The problem isn't the string itself, it's the space. The moment you introduce a fourth spatial dimension, knots lose their meaning. A knotted shoelace lifted into four dimensions simply slides around itself and falls apart. Nothing is breaking.
Spatial. Space. So there's always space for the knot to go around another hole, another, gap. There's always a way. But then, that gap can be an even tighter form of the knot, right? It can tie the knot even tighter. Space. Yeah. You can only be free when you go in the right direction. Right? If we're taking a look at this knot analogy.
You're not cutting the string. The knot just doesn't resist. It never truly existed. It was just an illusion created by insufficient room for it to explore.
Sufficient space.
And this is a recurring pattern in higher dimensions. What feels like structure from below turns out to be congestion, a limit of space, and not an impossibility. This is why certain objects cannot exist properly in our universe. Take the Klein bottle, for example. In 3 dimensions, it looks like a bottle that intersects itself as if it were carelessly designed, but in 4 dimensions, it doesn't intersect at all. It has no inside and no outside. The contradiction isn't in the objects, it's in the space that we're forcing them into. When mathematicians draw a Klein bottle in 3 dimensions, they're not showing you what it is. They're showing you what happens when something real is crushed into an insufficient world.
Yeah.
And this matters because it hints at something that is deeply unsettling. Reality, as we know it, may be full of objects and processes that only look paradoxical because we're seeing broken projections of them and not the full thing. By the time we reach the 5th dimension, physics begin to betray its own assumptions.
What's that?
In the 1920s, Theodor Kaluza rewrote Einstein's equations of gravity using 5 dimensions instead of 4. This mathematical experiment was designed to ask one simple question.
What's that?
What would happen if space-time had one more spatial direction? The result was unexpected and deeply uncomfortable. The equations split cleanly into 2 parts. One part described gravity exactly as Einstein had formulated it. The other part described electromagnetism with perfect precision. Light, magnetism, electric fields, all of it emerged automatically.
What does that mean?
In 5 dimensions, electromagnetism is not a separate force, it's geometry. This means something profound and very difficult to sit with. Light may not be fundamental. It may be a vibration in a direction that we can't access, a ripple in a dimension that we don't experience. From our perspective, gravity and light feel distinct because we are confined to a slice of reality that fractures them apart. However, from 5 dimensions, they could very well be the same phenomenon, just viewed from different angles. At this point, physics stops feeling like a set of rules and starts feeling like a shadow.
Yeah.
Geometry also begins behaving strangely here. As dimensions increase from 1 to 5, the volume of a unit sphere grows.
And now we can see the possibility of just how dimensions or the expansion of dimensions can actually be eternal. Right? Because one more dimension can always be added.
Space becomes more generous. The sphere reaches its maximum volume in the 5th dimension, and this is the peak, the moment where space is the most efficient at containing things.
Yeah.
Then, something breaks. At 6 dimensions...
Woo! At 6, baby. What you know about the 6th dimension, man? What you about to break down to us, man?
Volume starts to shrink.
Okay.
Now, this is counterintuitive in a way that cannot be visualized.
Yeah.
You are adding more room, and yet objects occupy less of it. Spheres become smaller relative to the space that they inhabit. Packing becomes inefficient, and distance itself loses meaning.
Yep.
This is the point where string theory becomes unavoidable.
What's that?
String theory is often framed as speculative, but mathematically it's an act of desperation. When physicists try to unify quantum mechanics and gravity, the equations just refuse to behave. Probabilities stop adding up to 1 and the math collapses into nonsense. Unless the universe has 6 extra spatial dimensions, and not metaphorically, literally.
So 6 gives rise to 6 more? What?
These dimensions are not extended like ours. They're compact, curled into complex shapes known as Calabi-Yau manifolds.
Oh.
And these shapes aren't decorative. Their topology determines the properties of particles, mass, charge, interaction strength. The laws of physics may not be laws at all. They may be consequences of hidden geometry.
Hidden geometry.
So you change the shape, and you could very well change the universe.
Yeah.
This introduces a deeply unsettling possibility.
Shit, I almost thought he was about to say this introduces AI. AI? Nah, okay, go on, bro.
What we call the constants of nature may be environmental accidents, features of how space is folded rather than truths about reality itself. By now, intuition is useless. You can't picture 6 dimensions.
Yeah.
I can't. Visualization fails because our
Theoretically,
brains
you can't.
evolved to navigate 3. What remains is just pattern recognition.
Yeah, and that's because, the concept of 3D, 3 dimensions, the third dimension, and that's what the human experience is. That's all we have. That's all we know about the existence of how many dimensions there are. It's just 3. You feel what I mean? But getting deeper into, in effect, even just like talking about, the idea of 3 dimensions, a real breaking down of what the contents within these dimensions are. Sure, there was the whole width, length, breadth, whatever, depth, you know what I mean? But that was just kind of like, those were kind of ambiguous ideas in terms of, them sticking on what the first dimension is, second dimension, third dimension, you know what I'm saying? Because, either that or I was literally a passive listener in school, man, in class. Because really a breakdown of what these 3 dimensions, entail or contain or whatever. It's like, nah, it's like, But shout out Aperture, you feel what I'm saying? 6 dimensions though, but you know about those. Do your homework. You know what I'm saying? It gets deep.
And the pattern is clear. Higher dimensions do not add complexity evenly. They introduce zones of order and zones of collapse. And this much becomes undeniable in the 8th dimension.
Oh.
Now, dimensions 5 through 7 are mathematically messy. We don't know their exact...
Oh, so... Shit. It becomes mad mathematical? That's why a lot of people avoid that shit. They just, they're comfortable with the knowledge of just the first 3 dimensions. That basic knowledge is enough for people.
Exact sphere packing limits.
Yeah.
The geometry resists optimization. It feels chaotic. Then, suddenly, in 8 dimensions, certainty returns. Mathematicians know exactly how many spheres can touch a central sphere in 8 dimensions, 240, and that's not approximately, that's exactly 240. These spheres arrange themselves into a structure called an E8 lattice, a configuration
Damn.
so perfect it cannot be improved upon. This is not an abstract curiosity. The same structure appears in string theory, group theory, and error-correcting codes. The geometry of 8-dimensional space is so efficient that it helps modern technology recover lost information.
Oh.
Reality, at certain dimensional depths, becomes better at preserving order than we are. This raises an uncomfortable question.
What's that?
Why does structure suddenly decide, of its own volition, if it has that, to reappear here in the 8th dimension? Why does the universe seem to prefer certain dimensions?
You know why I think that is? Look, this might be very ignorant expression, right? But I feel like, you know, these dimensions, especially dimensions that are to be tapped into, they've always been there. It's just a matter of when, you know, humans, I don't know if animals are conscious or aware of reality in these dimensional, you know, ways, but like, as for human beings, I feel like we are yet to be aware of it. And I feel like consciousness and being aware of these kind of, you know, realities or ways of, or forms of space, get lost in the language, god damn it, you know what I'm saying, whatever. But it's just a matter of tapping into them and just being aware of them. So even things like the eighth dimension, it's been there. It's just that, you know, the advancement of the human consciousness, right, of things that we are aware of. And I feel like it's a whole lot more things that we are aware of. It's just we don't have a title to. You know what I'm saying? Like awarenesses, like I've heard of people who are aware of flying objects. God damn. Is it poltergeist? Like the paranormal kind of activity where objects can just move, or, you know, the whole concept. I mean, I've seen it in movies where you can use your vision to move objects. You know what I'm saying? Things like that. Like you hear from people like, yeah, bro, that shit is normal. I've seen that shit. You know, magicians, they show it all the time. Yo, but to be honest, I haven't witnessed a ghost like in my life, like, you know what I'm saying, apart from me maybe titling my demons or my traumatic subconscious patterns ghosts or demons, you know what I'm saying. But, you know, one of them little human figures that just walks through walls and things like people are convinced I've seen this, bruh, like. And for me, maybe, you know, it exposes the limitation to my awareness of these other dimensions that exist. But I've never seen it. I've heard of it. Maybe if some suspicious motion happens within my space, like I just chalk it up to, nah, man, the wind is blowing too hard, nigga. You know what I'm saying? Let me adjust the door, or how open this door is, or, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. That time has been no wind in the thing. No wind. I'm just not that, you know, again, I don't have a superstitious mind. You know what I'm saying? And so shit, maybe it does have something to do with the fact that there are a whole lot more dimensions beyond the eighth dimension. It's just the collective awareness of, yo, humanity, this is where we're at. And for a majority of people, or a whole lot of people, being in agreement with this, you know, awareness or form of being, aka it being taught about in schools, it being addressed by science. I don't think science has addressed, you know, the concept of ghosts like that. I'm not talking about esoteric science, like I'm talking about, you know, regular science. God damn it, I don't know what to call it. By the way, man, I'm trying to cut to the sponsorship scene, man. Word from our sponsors real quick. We'll be right back.
Cries, sour momentum, passive with goodbyes. I'd rather you tell them, but now the truth is I've digressed from all the feelings, so it's forever though. When my mama's son missing, ain't no telling, do they love or did they kill him? The dominoes have fallen, we can't go back to beginning. This existential crisis, the reason I cannot keep competing and keep on living. So it's back against the world, seeing all your value once you dealt with all the dirt. Backing up slowly from these diamonds and pearls, quote unquote. Fat lady sings, I see the writing on the walls.